evening and welcome to the April 21st regular board meeting. Mr. Gooding, can you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Coates?
Here.
Mrs. Horn? Here. Mr. Manley? Here. Mrs. Mooring?
Here.
Mrs. Pickle Antonio?
Here. And if you'll all stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So I don't know if everybody heard me a little bit earlier. I know that there are a lot of students who are here tonight for class credit. At the end of the meeting, if you have your piece of paper to be signed, if you just bring that up to me, I can sign it at the end of the meeting. And if you do not have your piece of paper, that's okay. Just make sure you grab an agenda and I can sign that for you. And then also, if there is anybody who is here tonight who intends to speak during the public participation section of our agenda, there are slips to fill out. Those are up at the little table over there. Just need you to fill those out before public participation is over and make sure that I get the paper. Is there a motion to approve minutes from the March 15th Finance and Facility Committee meeting, the March 17th regular board meeting, the March 23rd special board meeting, the March 24th Student Learning and Achievement Committee meeting, the March 24th special board meeting, and the March 28th special board meeting?
I'll make a motion.
Thanks, Mr. Manley. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mrs. Coates. Any corrections or changes to the minutes? Okay, Mr. Gooding, can you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Pickle Antonio?
Yes.
Mrs. Coates?
Yes.
Mrs. Horn? Yes. Mr. Manley? Mrs. Mooring?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thanks. We are on the school and community reports and presentations section of the agenda, and we will start tonight with a presentation from Mrs. Eisringhausen and her students, who are here to talk with us about the Urban Arts Fair. And if the students could introduce themselves, that would be wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you for having us this evening. We really appreciate the opportunity, and I'll let my students introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Lila Manley. I'm a senior, and this is my second year in community art. I did it sophomore year and this year as a senior.
Hi, I'm Alexis, and I'm a senior, and this is my first year taking community art.
Tonight we're going to tell you a little bit about one of our projects that we've been working on. We have not been able to have the Urban Arts Fair for a couple years due to COVID, so we're really, really excited to be able to offer that again for the community. I want to tell you a little bit about myself. I've been with the district for 26 years, was at Lincoln Elementary, had Mrs. Coates' children there, and probably maybe some of you also. And then now I'm finishing up my career here at the high school. And community art has been in existence for, I think, 8 years, or 7 years. I've been at the high school for 8 years. So I'm going to let them go ahead and take over, and I'll intercede if I need to.
Okay, so we're just going to start off on what our class does. So basically, the community art class meets every other day, but it's to promote and increase the presence of the arts within the whole Gahanna community from our school. And it is a student-led, student-driven class, so we get to choose what projects we want to work on and how we're going to get there and what supplies and all of that kind of stuff. But so we'll work with all the other schools, local businesses, and city groups to create and promote the arts within our community. And then we have our own volunteer fundraising events as well.
So on the next slide, we'll have some examples of stuff we did. For example, the picture on the left is a mural that was done by a student in our class this year named Maggie, and the one on the right is a mural that was done in the past few years, both done at the high school in the hallways.
And then they're in the same exact hallway, like going behind the gym. Yeah. So the next slide. Thank you. So we've done the little logo at Small Cakes by Stonebridge a couple years ago. And then at the high school, we have the STEM lab, the Smart Lab, sorry. The Smart Lab is kind of where people will go if they're very stressed and just kind of need to de-stress and, I don't know, just be calm. So we tried to do like a calming tree, I think like a year or two ago. And then last year, because of the pandemic, because we still had students at home and at school, so a project to bring everyone together was that we painted teacher parking spots throughout the schools. So like there's one, be the light, and then just positive little things for everyone.
On the next slide, we also have some more murals. One of them I did was the language department murals on the left, which is has a flag of all the languages that we teach in the DJEA. The other image is one that's done by the science lab, which was a mural that was done a couple years back. And finally, on the bottom, there is a bench we did on the herb garden a couple years back.
Yeah. And to the next slide. So last year we did a Gahanna Orchestra mural, and we put it on this like fancy kind of paper so we can transfer it to the new school and the new orchestra room. And that's what we did with the language one as well, because we just put that up. So, and we kind of made that one more personalized, because if you know Mr. Dangle, the orchestra teacher, he loves bees, so we did bees everywhere on it. And then also, we've had this class for almost like 8 years, we were thinking, and almost every year we've done 1 or 2 snow plows for the Holiday Lights Parade in Gahanna. So these are the 2 that we did this year. We had 2 students do like kind of a sloth kind of vibes with like, I think where it says the words, there's like lights on the words. And then me and Carson, we did that other one in the bottom corner, which is like a penguin village kind of thing. So yes.
And we also have done graphics for all the elementary schools, and we also have done the Creekside wall murals, which we're planning to revamp them again next year with the help of all the other schools.
Yeah, that one has, if you ever go underneath the bridge, there's like a mural from every school. So we would just want to revive it. The next slide, please.
This was one of the first events since COVID. It was the Puppy Palooza, which we hosted at Pizzurro Park. Our goal was to, one, bring fundraising money and also bring free crafts to the community. We have also provided handcraft bakery goods from Gears program, and we also did a dog wash.
And then there's more pictures of that on the next slide. So there's the big art project that we did in the bottom corner with the community, and kind of did a paint by numbers thing. In the top right is we had a chalk contest, and so that was the winner. Did dog wash, and then as Alexis was saying, the Gear Gahanna Bakery came and sold treats. So the next one. So right before the pandemic, we tried doing the Puppy Palooza, but it was not under that name. We just kind of did a dog wash for a fundraiser. But also right before COVID, we wanted to start a new annual thing, but kind of stopped because of COVID. We did the holiday hoopla, which on the next slide, we had around 64 art vendors, craft vendors, all kinds of vendors to come and sell, and so within our community, and it was just a good fun thing to do in the winter time when it's not so nice outside. And if you go to the next slide, please. There we got musical things from the band, and then just more because the students got to do the vendor applications and go through them. We got to process the money. We kind of got to see all the step-by-step instructions to do it.
Which leads us to the project we're talking about today. On May 7th of this year from 10 to 4 p.m., we're planning to host the Urban Arts Fair at the VFW Park. There will be a variety of live musical stuff at the stage, a food truck, student art sale, as well as free craft stations for families to come down and enjoy for themselves.
And then So we were just talking about the last time we were here was right before COVID happened, and we started planning the seventh Urban Arts Fair, but then we obviously had to stop because couldn't really be around other people in that kind of capacity. So this year we are bringing it back to life for this now going to be 7th annual Urban Arts Fair. And so if you could do the next slide, please. So we are gonna have a giant slide because that's the best option for COVID restrictions still. We have, I think, about 7 hours of performances and speakers from like Gahanna bands. We're gonna have some part from the high school theater because that weekend is their big Legally Blonde show. So they are gonna be trying to come for part of that. And then we also do the student art sale for our amazing artwork that people have done to spread the joy.
As I mentioned before, this is open for all ages, so grandparents can bring down their grandkids for free crafts, families can come down, mothers can come down and see all the vendors that are going to be selling. We're also doing this with the city to do the Herb Day, which is happening for the 50th year anniversary on the exact same day.
Yeah, so we're going to join with the city to make it an even bigger event and come back better after the pandemic. And yeah, so everything is supposed to be free because that's why we have all of our other fundraisers during the year, because we do want the whole community to come out and enjoy the arts, because that is what was the mentality for creating this class. So yes, we think of other physical activities and crafts, and then there's the other things that people can buy, and then we are having a little piece of the holiday hoopla, which is we're having 10 maybe vendors come from, but they are from Gahanna, so it is the Gahanna community, and then we'll be partnering with the city and they will have other vendors as well.
To contact us, you can use our email or use our website as shown there. To see more progress that we are doing, we also have a Facebook and an Instagram account, and obviously there's a phone number for any more questions.
And you guys can reach out to us at any time, but if you have any questions or comments, you guys can go to us now. And yeah.
I just want to kind of finish up, too. Just so proud of these students. I only have 10 young people in this class this year, and they've done all of the fundraising, the processing of the money, understanding how you raise money for things like this, and writing grants, doing all the publicity, creating the website, and working with the swag team to do really professional looking publicity, including our logo and things like that. So I just want to give all the credit to these young people, because they're really amazing and they've done a fabulous job, and I'm very, very proud of them. So just want to say that. And then if you want to ask them any questions or me, you're more than welcome to do so.
Okay, I'll just say a few things.
I can't hear anything.
Wonderful
Dennis?
presentation. Thank you so much for that. I learned a lot. I've enjoyed watching your projects, and your programming is inspirational. I never thought that you wrote the grants, and that's really, I love the student-led premise. I love the parking lot that you did that for the teachers. That's amazing. I love every one of them, and I love seeing them around town and seeing the GLHS and all the different schools that have their signatures on your artwork is just so uplifting. And I just wanted to ask, did you do the dumpsters over by Creekside? In addition to the snowplows, which I never knew. That's amazing.
The ones that are wrapped, those are done by the swag class. So it is another high school project, but yeah.
Wow. Thank you so much. Great presentation. Appreciate it. Lila?
Any other questions or comments?
I know this is next year, but do you know if the holiday hoopla will be coming back?
Our hope is that it will be, and then also our big project next year is going to be doing the Urban Arts Fair again, but we're hoping to revamp the Creekside Bridge murals, so that's going to be another really big project for us. So that seems to happen about every 6 years, because public murals just, exposed to weather and things like that. So we're really excited about redoing that, working with the schools. So Hope for the hoopla.
No, I mean, really great presentation, and your projects are amazing. I went to the Puppy Palooza, did I say it right?
Yeah.
And I thought it was an amazing event, and I pass those murals every time on my bike ride, so I look forward to seeing the new murals coming up. And thank you for being an advisor to them, because I know how much you inspire them, and I just love that it's community and Gahanna Lincoln High School coming together. It's just amazing.
I'm going to sign out and sign back in, Bill.
I was going to make the
I'm
same
gonna
comment. Every
sign
year
out
you
and sign
bring
back
our
in.
community together, you bring
Okay.
dance companies, all these different people, young, elementary students, middle school students, high school students with their own
he
bands.
put in the
and
chat.
It's a lot of
Wants to
organization,
continue
and I
our
think
presentations,
this is
we'll turn on
experiential
the
learning.
audio
I think
for
you
the
guys can
presentation.
organize all kinds of events after you do this, weddings, I mean, it's amazing what you learn. I know you have to work with the police department and the city, and it's such a great time, and now we need more than ever to bring people together face to face. So thanks for all you're doing to bring community
We're
together.
excited this year too because we do get to pair with the Gahanna Herb Day, which we haven't done before, and it was kind of quite by accident because they reserved the spot before I got
Yeah.
to do that, and so I was like, could we maybe just combine it?
It's
So
a
they're going to
happy
have,
accident,
I
yeah.
think they have 36 vendors that are coming, and
Dennis,
they're going to
can
have
you hear me?
herb speakers and all kinds of stuff. So this is a trial,
Yes,
but we're
yes, Bill, I
hoping
can
that
hear
it
you.
works well and that we
You have to
really
leave
make a
at
good
7.
partnership with
Yeah.
this, and maybe can repeat that and grow. So it'll be fun. We'll have to see. Hope you can all come.
Thank you.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
I have a class.
Next on our agenda tonight, we have a presentation. I think Bill Phillips is here and Dennis Willard from Vouchers Hurt, Ohio. They are here with us via Zoom, so they'll be up on the screen. And just so board members know, there's a delay in the audio. So if any of you have questions, I'm going to type the question into the chat. So there's not a delay in being able to respond to the questions. So if you see me typing, that's why. I don't know who's speaking first, if it's Bill or if it's Dennis, but if you wouldn't mind introducing yourselves, and I will turn it over to you. Bill, could you hear me at all?
Yes, I can hear you. Hello. Dennis, are you getting any audio from me?
I'm getting audio from you, Bill, but not from them at this point. Oh, they said go ahead and introduce yourselves and get started. So go ahead, Bill. I think they can hear us. We're just not. Okay, great.
Well, this is Bill Phillips, Executive Director of the Coalition for Equity and Advocacy School Funding. First of all, thank you for your time on your agenda this evening. The goal of the Ed Choice voucher litigation is to stop the state from funding Ed Choice vouchers, period. As a constitutional issue, the school voucher lobby, of course, is very rich and powerful, and we're going to get a lot of pushback. In fact, we've already gotten a lot of pushback from that rich and powerful pro-voucher lobby. It's going to be a difficult struggle. However, we're going to win this case because the Constitution is on our side. Now, this is not just blind wishful thinking. Let me tell you why. We've got an all-star steering committee of our coalition comprised of primarily of board members, superintendents, and treasurers. We have three attorneys on our steering committee, former Chief Justice Brown, a law professor, Charlie Wilson, also an ex-legislator, former legislator who is also an attorney, and so we have plenty of legal power on our steering committee. We've hired the prestigious firm of Walter Haverfield, and they've assigned to our case Mark Wallach, who has 46 years of experience in the courtroom and is very passionate about this project. We have a law professor from South Carolina as an expert witness, Derek Black. Derek Black has written about 30 scholarly articles. He has written about 6 books. His latest book is Schoolhouse Burning, which is all about vouchers and charters and how vouchers and charters are taking a toll on the public school system of America. We have a statistician as an expert witness, as well as law Professor Black. We have a prestigious media firm that's working with us. Sorry about that phone call there. We have New Precision Media, headed by Dennis Willard, a career journalist, particularly with the Akron Beacon Journal. So we've got the right horses in this contest. So Dennis is going to take us through just a few minutes slide presentation about the claims in the complaint that we filed on January 4. By the way, we have now about 115 districts that are involved in this lawsuit, and that number is growing every day. So, Dennis, if you want to go through the PowerPoint there quickly, and I'll be glad to answer questions, as will Dennis.
Yeah, just very quickly, I would like to talk to you about the 5 counts in the lawsuit, just to show you how strong we believe our challenge is, and understand that Ohio's not alone. Other states are fighting back and pushing back against these private school vouchers, either in the courts, through the governor's office, or in the legislature when applicable. Here, we believe we do not have a shot at stopping this in the legislature, so we went to the courts. There are constitutional questions. As Bill mentioned, it's an Ohio constitutional question, meaning this is not a federal issue that'll go to the Supreme Court, the U.S. Supreme Court. This will end up in the Ohio Supreme Court. Also, their decision is a binary decision. It's not like the school funding decision where they sent it back to the legislature and the governor and told them to fix it, or the gerrymandering issues you've seen where they've sent them back to the commission to fix those. This is a question as whether or not the state is permitted by the Constitution to fund private school vouchers. We believe the Constitution is very clear. And the first count is really based on the idea that the Constitution clearly says that the Ohio legislature and the governor are responsible for creating a system of common schools for all Ohio school children, not multiple systems as Ed Choice promotes. The Constitution has no provision to fund uncommon or unpublic schools, and especially at a time when there are efforts to fund a thorough and efficient system of schools, but they have not done that yet, adequately funding that. And so this is at the expense of making our public school system funding constitutional. The Ohio Constitution forbids this. This is an originalist interpretation. And the 2-year state budget that they passed in 2021 makes things even worse. What they did there is they increased the high school vouchers to $7,500 per pupil, K through 8 to $5,500 per pupil. These are for private school voucher students. They removed the cap on vouchers. They gave a tuition tax credit of $750 to families. For the first time ever, we're giving a financial incentive to parents to homeschool their children with a $250 tax credit. Right next door in West Virginia, they are giving vouchers to homeschooling families. a $500 ESA for parents. Siblings and foster children are eligible to be in the voucher program. And basically, what they're doing now is they're paying the private school costs for families who never enrolled or never intended to enroll in the public school system. That's count one. Count two is, it goes back to the funding issue. What they didn't do in the budget was they didn't fully fund the Cup-Patterson school funding formula. Now, this is the formula that they say is constitutional. So they are funding it at 1/3 of the amount of money they say is constitutional. So by their own admission, we have an underfunded school funding formula. And keep in mind that the money that comes out of all of this money comes out of the same line item for your public schools and for the private school voucher program. So $1 out for a private school is $1 less for public schools. The constitutional framers were very clear about this. In 1851, and then again in 1873 and 74, they rejected putting tax dollars into private schools. They wrote that we shall secure, meaning protect, a single system of common schools for the common good, because common schools existed before the 1851 Constitution. They weren't creating them. They're protecting them. They're securing them. And they're protecting them from these outside influences. In fact, during the Constitutional Convention of 1873-74, someone came in and offered an amendment to the Constitution to allow for money to be diverted to private schools. And our framers wholeheartedly rejected that idea. So this is not open to interpretation. There is a record that says we will not be giving money to private schools with public dollars. As I mentioned, the Fair School Funding Plan is not fully funded. Money comes from the same budget. All growth in the past 5 years in the budget has gone to voucher programs, including Ed Choice. And right now, 25% of the state dollars are going to 10% of students in private schools. That's just unconstitutional. The third issue is very troubling, and that is that private school vouchers make segregation in Ohio worse. The framers rejected this idea. They said a segregated system of common schools cannot be considered thorough or efficient. Again, a single system of common schools. One of our schools that are part of the case is Richmond Heights out of Cuyahoga County. Prior to Ed Choice being introduced into that system, 1 in 4 students were white. After Ed Choice, that number has dwindled to 3% white students. You have in-district white flight in Richmond Heights. That's unconstitutional. The other thing is that private schools can apply and do apply a litmus test to attendance or to enrollment. They can look at somebody's disability, their disciplinary records, academics, athletics, race, religion, and their financial status and say, you know what, we're going to close our door to you. For any of those reasons, or not stating any reason at all, they get to choose. In fact, school choice is really about the private school choice. They're the ones who choose who gets to enter their school doors and who is left out. You know who can't do that? You. Public schools, your doors are wide open to all students. You take all students. That's constitutional. A private school litmus test using public tax dollars is unconstitutional. That's count 3. Count 4, this is very clear. This is the exact language from our Ohio Constitution. No religious or other sect shall ever have any exclusive right to or control of any part of the school funds of this state. I mean, it's right there in black and white. And of course, when I covered the legislature as a reporter, I remember lawmakers used to joke, what's a little constitution among friends? Well, they can get away with that as long as no one challenges it. But we're challenging it. We're taking the test to the Ohio Supreme Court and saying, does the actions of the legislature meet constitutional boundaries? We believe they do not. 90% of the private schools are parochial, and that's a conservative estimate. So this year, $250 million of tax dollars will go to sectarian schools. And this has real impact and ramifications. That's why we say vouchers hurt Ohio. Another one of our plaintiff districts is Cleveland Heights University Heights. In the last 3 years, they've lost $27 million to Ed Choice, one district. Ed Choice student this year in Cleveland Heights, University Heights will get $7,500 per pupil. The state is giving Cleveland Heights, University Heights $1,100 per pupil for a high school student. Now, there's something wrong with that picture. 95% of the Ed Choice students never enrolled in Cleveland Heights, University Heights. 95%. Never had any intention. Probably couldn't find one of the local schools with a GPS and a map. What has Cleveland Heights, University Heights had to do? They've been forced to pass 2 levies to make up the losses of these dollars. So what we're doing is we're shifting the funding formula back to the local homeowners. In 1997 and 3 subsequent rulings afterward, the Ohio Supreme Court said a school funding formula that is over-reliant on property taxes is unconstitutional. So we have an underfunded constitutional system right now, and private school voucher program is exacerbating this problem, making it worse. And there's the proof. The 5th point of the lawsuit, the 5th count, is basically we're asking for a declaratory judgment, meaning that we're asking the Ohio Supreme Court eventually to say no to this system. And there's an equal protection clause in the federal Constitution, and there's one in our Constitution as well. And it basically says that requires that similarly situated individuals will be treated equally under the law, that education is a fundamental right upon which all fundamental rights, other fundamental rights rest, and that the power is inherent in us. Again, the legislators can say all they want that this is a constitutional system, but we're going to test that. We're testing that by going to the courts. So those are the 5 points. And I really apologize. I have actually a college class that starts at 7 o'clock. I did want to make this presentation. I'm going to jump off, and Bill can answer any questions. And Bill, please, if there's anything I can follow up with on this, I would. I can't miss my class tonight. I really apologize. I wanted to get this done by 7. I'm sorry for that.
Well, thank you, Dennis. And I'd be happy to respond to any questions that you might have.
I don't know if you can hear us at all, but thank you. Let me just check to see if board members have questions. Any questions? Oh, I had to type the question in the chat and give Bill a minute, but the question to Bill was, what is the timing of the lawsuit and where do
I'm
you
not
stand
getting any
now?
audio from anybody. Hello? Yeah, I can hear you now. Well, we filed on January 4. On January 7, there was a group out of Virginia entitled the Institute for Justice that filed a motion to intervene. And then along toward the end of January, another group, the Catholic Families Applicants, filed a motion to intervene in our case. These 2 groups apparently didn't think that the Attorney General's office would adequately represent them in defending, the Ed Choice Voucher program, so they filed to intervene. On March 30, there was a hearing in Judge Page's court, Franklin County Common Pleas Court, Judge Page, on the question of whether these groups could intervene in the lawsuit. And as of now, that the court has not ruled on that issue. Now, in terms of a court date when the merits of the case are considered, we of course at this point don't have that date, and we don't know obviously when it's going to be. The attorneys are moving forward with dispatch as quickly as they can, but we can't make any predictions on what the next event is in the Common Pleas Court of Franklin County.
Bill, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
I don't know if you can, yeah, that's not going to work. Sorry.
I'm not picking up any audio now. When a district joins, it's currently $2 per pupil, and if a district is interested in having a member of the board or the superintendent or treasurer to be on the steering committee, the governing unit of the coalition, we would consider that. In fact, right now we have 20, right at 20 members of the 20 superintendents, treasurers, board members as making up the steering committee, but we want to add to that as the coalition numbers grow. We have over 200 districts that belong to the coalition, about 120 of which are also paying into the litigation fund, which involves the $2 per pupil. So the total cost at this point in time to join the effort is $2 per pupil, and that's per year. And boards of education, when they pass the resolution to join, then they each year determine whether they're going to re-up their dues. So just because they joined in 1 year doesn't mean they have to join. They're obligated to join in future years.
Another question in here, but does anybody else have any questions?
Okay.
Sorry, bear with us on the technology. I guess Ron is going to ask the question to Bill, so you'll hear the question when he asks it.
Yes. Our here. Let me give some more explanation to all of this. Our coalition started in 1991. I left the State Department of Education as Assistant Superintendent of Public Instruction after serving there for 16 years. Joined the coalition effort in 1992, and was involved, of course, in the Durall funding case. Some districts have belonged to the coalition for all of those years. Other districts have joined off and on, and some have joined, 15 years, some have 1 year, and so on. The bottom line is the coalition will probably continue to exist, all through the ed voucher litigation and beyond. But as I said, a district only makes an obligation year by year. So I don't know if that answers your question or not, but the board only makes a decision for 1 year, 1 year at a time.
Anybody else have any questions? Okay. I will type my thank you in here, but...
By the way, in Franklin County, we've got, of course, Columbus City District belongs Southwestern, Westerville, Worthington, Reynoldsburg. There's obviously several districts in this county that belong, and there are at least 6 steering committee members in Franklin County that are 6 members of the steering committee represent Franklin County area schools.
I don't think we have any additional questions.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the time. And I'm sorry about the technology. I'm sorry that Dennis had to leave. He adds a lot to this. So thank you so much. Thank you.
Thanks, Ron, for helping out with the technology.
Recordings.
Give me just a second, sorry. Okay. Next on the agenda is our Gahanna-Lincoln Student Council President, Varun Miroyala.
Hi everyone, my name is Varun Mariala. I'm a senior at Gahanna-Lincoln High School as well as the Student Council President. And like usual, I'll just be providing some updates on what our Student Council has been working on. So, as I mentioned last time, our Wellness and Mental Health Committee worked on a mental minute, which happened April 8th. And it was a really awesome experience. It was our first time holding it, and it was in the main gym, and we were able to collaborate with a lot of the groups around Gahanna, like Link Crew, Green Dot, Hope Squad, our Smart Lab, just to provide all of our students an opportunity to understand all of the avenues to reach out to the counselors and all of the resources at Gahanna-Lincoln High School relating to distressing and mental health. So we're hoping to continue that next year and continue a lot of the collaboration with groups. If many of you who were here earlier this year remember that we held our first club fair this year. So we're hoping to continue the collaboration with a lot of Gahanna groups just to continue the interconnectedness. Also, the biggest thing Student Council is working on right now is our junior-senior prom. And this is going to be our first real prom in a couple years. It'll be May 14th at the Valleydale Ballroom from 8 to 11 p.m. Tickets are $45, and digital tickets will be on sale May 2nd, and paper tickets will be on sale starting May 9th in the concession stand during the lunch period. So students are available to buy either version of the ticket, but there are a limited number of the paper tickets, so just be prepared for that. Also, back this year is the ability for guests from other schools to attend our prom. So any person can come to the prom from any other school, but there must be a form filled out and turned into the office by May 12th. So if you're planning on bringing a guest from another school, please make sure to turn that in. Also, we'll be having our last Spirit Week of the year, the week of prom. So we're working on getting the themes approved by administration, and we'll be sure to publicize that and work with Lincoln Live to make sure all students can participate and show their spirit. Likewise, we are having prom royalty voting happening. So many students already nominated their peers or themselves. So right now we are working with administration to get that list nominated, or get that list approved, and we'll have voting out within the next couple weeks. There'll be multiple rounds of voting, with the final round for prom royalty happening at the actual prom. So students are able to vote for whoever they best believe fits prom royalty at the actual event. Also, our staff and our teachers and staff work so hard throughout the year, so we're planning our first for a while staff luncheon. Last year we had the option to for teachers to fill out a form and just grab a packed box from Cafe Zupa. This year we're trying to transition back into the formal setting where teachers and staff can come down during their lunch period to the auditorium lobby where they'll be provided food. So we are catering food, and we're also working with a lot of local businesses to get raffle prizes for our teachers to raffle off and just show our support for teachers. We're also providing 2 weeks worth of mailbox gifts to our teachers and staff. So we're just working on celebrating our teachers because Teacher Appreciation Week, of course, is coming up. And finally, this is just to plug another club at Gahanna, but our Multicultural Club is is at least planning so far to have a festival on May 12th, so we're hoping to at least support that and help out in any way. And we're also incorporating that into our Spirit Week to have a cultural day. So if anyone's interested in showing up, it'll be in the main gym, I believe. But we are having a festival on May 12th, and that is pretty much it, and I'm open to any questions you guys have.
Daphne? Oh, Varun, that was a lot. Great presentation. Wow, you have a lot going on.
Yep.
Looking forward to prom. I'm taking notes. I love every time you talk.
Thank you.
Spirit Week, I look forward to that every year. So thank you for all the energy, the staff luncheon.
Yep.
I just love the idea of that and personalizing it beyond like a sack lunch, which is nice too, but like the energy that you're giving back to the teachers. I know that that means so much to them. So thanks for all your organizing. The mailbox, who doesn't love getting mail? And Multicultural Festival, I want to try to make that. So thank you for everything that you're organizing and putting out the word for. So it's great.
Yep, thank you.
How many of you do you elect next year's officers?
So all the students who applied for an officer position already submitted their application, and each student does have to give a little 2-minute, 3-minute speech to the class, and which will be voted on, and that'll be happening in May. For those of you who don't know, Mrs. Newman, our advisor, is actually out right now, so we're hoping as soon as she gets back, we're able to elect our new officers.
I just want to say I really appreciate the work Student Council's doing with mental health. It's really proactive and smart and supportive of your fellow students. And sometimes it takes a lot of vulnerability and courage to admit that, we're struggling. And by the fact that you guys are out there just making sure that students have a sense that it's okay if you need help, I think it's incredible. And did I see you on the track last night?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I thought. You were moving so fast, I wasn't sure it was you. So
Yeah, thank you.
you guys did really well. They won the Gahanna Relays, so congratulations, both boys and girls.
Yeah, thank you.
I don't know how you do it all. Thanks.
Thank you.
I'm glad, Steve, that you said that about mental health. I did have a student say to me that they felt that their freshmen and the program that's been, the programming that you've led, they feel heard and they feel comfortable in the school building because of the support from their peers. So thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Varun.
Yep, thank you.
We are going to skip Gahanna Jefferson Education Foundation for now, and I'll have Mrs. Coates give a report during board reports and discussions, if that's okay. And so now we're on Gahanna Jefferson Education Association. I have Jim Hyder down here, but you do not look like Jim Hyder, Mrs. Harding.
Although I wish I had the energy of Jim Hyder, but he is ill this week, and so I decided to take his place really quickly. But my name is Paige Harding. I've been a teacher for a couple years. I teach vocal music at Gahanna Middle School East and South, and before I did that, I was at Middle School West. So I feel pretty knowledgeable about middle school vocal music throughout the district. I reside in the community. I have 2 children who graduated from Gahanna and are now in their respective jobs. My daughter is a 3-year teacher at Southwestern City Schools. She teaches 7th grade ELA. And my son is currently a building sub at Middle School East, and he's eagerly awaiting the process for Columbus Police Department or the Division of Fire. So we understand public service in my family, and we are dedicated and committed to that. So recently, I just attended the NEA Leadership Summit. I joined 1,400 teachers throughout the United States for just a wonderful weekend of collaboration. Our focus was on uniting a better future for our students, our educators, and our community. So just collaborating with teachers throughout the nation was pretty amazing. And as soon as you think something doesn't work well in your state, you hear another story, and you're like, I'm glad I am in Ohio. So currently for DJEA, we are also doing some elections next month, and we are also planning our annual banquet for our retirees and our office holders and our scholarship winners. We also have Hall of Fame winners and Friend of Education. So it has been a year. We are working hard to the finish line. We're tired, but we're committed. I'm personally excited and thankful for all the live performances I've been able to have with my students this year. It was a challenge when the year started because nobody thought we could do it with masks on, and we did. And now the masks are off, and the students are really eager, and they're doing their best job. So that's all for tonight. Thanks.
Harding. Either is okay. She is Paige. He apologized for calling you not Mrs. Harding.
Oh, that's okay.
Next, we have a report out from Finance and Facility Committee from Mrs. Mooring.
The Finance and Facilities Committee met on Tuesday, April 19th, and there were 3 agenda items. One was the Phase 2 update on our building projects across the district, and a lot is happening. The work that the teams are doing is pretty incredible. I did drive out Havens Corners today, and the walls that are up at Blacklick are like even further along than the pictures that were shared on Tuesday. So it's all real. It's pretty cool to see it all coming together. The second item was the March 22 financial report, and I think the treasurer will be sharing more about that later, so I'll skip that. And then our third agenda item was a preview of the May 22 5-year forecast that we must submit to the Ohio Department of Education by May 31st. We basically walk through the assumptions that our treasurer is incorporating into that 5-year forecast. So it was a long and but important discussion. That's all.
Ms. Mooring, any report from Policy and Governance Committee, Mr. Manley?
Hi, yeah, no, Matt, I don't have a report from Matt, but I will tell you that.
You're not there.
That's
You're on
Fairfield.
policy.
Never mind.
That'll
Policy
be
Committee
later.
is meeting next week, Tuesday, April 26th at 6:30 here. Thank you. Sorry.
That's okay. You could give us all your reports now.
Report from Eastland Fairfield.
Yeah,
nothing.
I was kidding. I'm going to ask you again. Sorry. For Policy and Governance Committee, I think that I received a question from the community about when those policies are available for people to know what we're going to be discussing. We used to have a link that was on the board page that would update with the policies that are under review. I don't think that link has been updated in a long time. So I believe the answer to the question is that the community will know when the agenda gets posted, and that is usually the day of the policy committee meeting. And I guess just for clarity, there is no voting that goes on during committee meetings. That is the board's opportunity to talk with administration and district staff about those policies. They then show up sometimes, depending on what that discussion is, they'll show up on the next regular board meeting agenda. So, and just to be clear, board members don't know any earlier than when we get the agenda what policies are up for discussion. Is that all accurate, Mr. Manley? I think so. I haven't chaired that committee, but
all the policies are also available on our website. If you go to the link under Board of Education, you can click on the links for our meetings and our YouTube videos of our meetings, and also the policies themselves are all there in writing.
okay, thank you. Any update from Student Learning and Achievement Committee, Mrs. Coates?
Yeah, so next week, April 28th, 6:30, here at Clark Hall, we are going to have our Global Scholars Program present. Their advisor is Marcy Ayala, and several students are going to be coming to show their kind of end-of-year projects. And a lot of us were at the Global Scholars Diploma Program this past week, and we heard some of the presentations, and they are amazing. So I hope all of you could come back to the committee meeting, because it's an amazing program, and would love for all of you to learn more about it.
I don't remember what we discussed at last Student Learning and Achievement. I know.
Yeah, so our last meeting last month, and I'll have to check and see if the link is on the website, but
website, but it's on the YouTube.
Yeah, we had an amazing presentation about our learning loss strategies, how we're going to tackle learning loss from the pandemic and use of ESSER funds. And so it was a really good strategic presentation. We learned a lot in that meeting.
Long time ago. Okay, we are on the public participation section of the agenda, and I will just repeat for anybody who wasn't here when I said it before. If there is anyone in the audience who intends to speak during public participation, there is a slip. It looks like this. It's over at that little table on the side. You would just need to fill out the slip, and you can hand it to Judy in the back of the room, who will bring it to me. And as long as I have the slip by the end of public participation, you will be given an opportunity to speak. I have, I think, 5 slips right now, so I'm just going to call people up in the order that I have the slips. One thing that is new since our last board meeting is that instead of us trying to time on our telephones and not communicating very well to you so that you know when your time is up, we have a timer. It's up near the podium. We actually have it set for the full 5 minutes so that I don't interrupt you while you're speaking. And as long as if you hit the 3-minute mark, so the way that our public participation bylaw reads, you are afforded 3 minutes to address the board, and you may request 2 additional minutes. I have always granted the additional minutes, but if you hit 3 minutes and you start repeating, that's when I may intervene to cut you off. We are trying to be respectful of everybody's time who is here, our time, so that we can get through the board business that we need to get through, and all of your time. So, like I said, it is set for the full 5 minutes, but if you hit 3 minutes and begin to repeat, that's when I will intervene and ask you to please wrap it up. For anyone who hasn't been here before during public participation, we set aside this time on the agenda as time for you in the community to address us. It is not intended to be time for a dialogue. Rather, it is your time to speak about issues that are relevant to the school district. It's not time to come here and speak to us about anything that's on your mind, but about issues that are relevant to the school district. And it is an address that you are making to the board. So it's not an address to the cameras, it's not an address to the community. You are speaking to the board and letting us know what is on your mind related to our school district. So with all of that preamble, the first speaker slip that I have is from Elizabeth Daniels.
Good evening, guys. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I just had a couple points that I wanted to make. I wanted to say, all right. Thank you guys so much for the community participation on Monday, where parents and taxpayers were able to come together to discuss the district's equity and access plan. It warmed my heart to see how majority of us were able to come together and respectfully discuss tough topics. I look forward to you all choosing a diverse group of 12 to 15 members to serve on your Equity and Access Parent Advisory Committee. I hope the district takes the feedback from those meetings seriously and makes changes where majority disagreed with the current plan. I also hope the district does things like this in the future because the feedback is important for those in leadership to hear, and it gives a voice to those in the community. So it was awesome. Thank you, thank you. And then my second point is, I hope Gahanna is not intending to join the voucher lawsuit. Despite what the Vouchers Hurt Ohio website says, schools are not a one-size-fits-all. Many of you should know this as leaders of our district. A parent should be able to determine which means of schooling best fits their child, and it isn't the district's job to grade another school to say that it's deserving of the money. A district is not entitled to money from a student that chooses to go elsewhere. All of you sitting here, including us in the audience want what's best for the children, and we recognize that sometimes a family chooses something that's not public school, and that's okay. As far as I know, Gahanna doesn't participate in the voucher program because our scores are too high, which is excellent. So there's no need to waste taxpayer money, especially when, according to Tuesday's finance meeting, which is subject to change, I understand, by 2024 we will be operating in a deficit. You will have a lot of upset taxpayers should you choose to join this lawsuit. I know many of you sitting here disagree with school choice, but please do not choose to be careless with our funds. Choose to fund our academics to keep us from being a failing school that would be faced with vouchers. This lawsuit also does not support equity and access for all, which is very important to our district. That is all I have. Thank you.
Daniels, I'm going to ask that we not do applause. I know that we've gotten into this habit of applauding, but during public participation, I'm going to enforce our bylaw, and we are not going to have applause during public participation anymore. The next slip that I have is from Lisa Sauer.
I decided to speak today when I saw there was an agenda item about vouchers per Ohio lawsuit. Oh, I forgot about that. The presenters forgot to mention how this lawsuit is funded. They sure have an impressive list of attorneys and expert witness and journalists. It is the Ohio taxpayers who are footing the bill for these high-priced attorneys, and now they are asking Gahanna to pay $14,600 a year. They forgot to mention that students from only failing school districts can use this scholarship, so they think it's okay for students to not have access to a better educational opportunity. And they forgot to mention that only low-income families can qualify for Ed Choice. I hope our school board will choose to not support this lawsuit. Why would our school district use our taxpayer dollars to fund these lawyers to fight a school choice program that was established by our elected officials in our state legislature? There is a website called lawsuitshurtkids.com from Americans for Prosperity that discusses how this lawsuit would hurt kids. According to the website, Ohio offers a number of scholarships which benefit kids on the autism spectrum, kids with special needs, kids living in underperforming school districts, and kids living in poverty. The scholarships take a small portion of per pupil state funds that normally follow kids to their public school district, and instead follow kids to a different school chosen by their parents. When a kid leaves a public school, the actual net effect is that the public school has more per pupil dollars, since all the local dollars stay in place and now there is one less kid to teach. In spite of this, a number of public school districts are suing the people of Ohio so they can shut down some of these scholarships, the Ed Choice Scholarship. According to the website edchoice.org, Ed Choice Scholarship Program allows Ohio students who attend chronically low-performing public schools to receive vouchers that help them afford to attend private schools. Participating private schools are required to accept the voucher as full tuition for students whose families are at below 200% of the federal poverty level. Vouchers are worth up to $5,500 in grades K through 8 and $7,500 in grades 9 to 12. As you can see, the lawsuit will hurt low-income families who have chosen to use the Ed Choice Scholarship while using tax dollars to fund this lawsuit. This lawsuit would take away their only option to pursue the right educational option for their family. Majority of Ohioans do support our voucher program, and using district funds to sue our state could hurt our current school board re-election efforts. I hope you make a choice that would be most fiscally responsible to our district and won't negatively impact Ohio families.
Sauer. The next slip that I have is from Tony Sullivan.
Hello, and thank you for allowing public participation. I will need the whole 5 minutes, and I will not repeat myself. I want to start with there are many schools of thought that shape our worldview. In politics, there's liberals, conservatives, Democrats, Republicans, libertarians, and so forth. In the religious world, there are Christians, Catholics, Jews, Muslims, atheists, agnostics, and so forth. Gahanna has been a model for how different people with different schools of thought can coexist in peace. This is what drew many residents to want to live here and why many residents want to stay here. As a tax-paying citizen, a parent with kids in the district, a resident of over 19 years in Gahanna, a black man, a free thinker, and a child of God, I'm very concerned with the direction of our district and what the end result may be. In order to be a free thinker, you also have to be a critical thinker, and you must study all sides to every subject. Sometimes you may have to follow the money. After the George Floyd incident, many organizations, along with schools, pushed this agenda of diversity, equity, and inclusion. It rides on the premise that because America was founded on slavery, which was bad, America is racist. It sounds good. It may have good intentions. It may make people feel good. But the problem is the data from American history does not back up the theory of systemic racism and America being racist. And I recommend a book, Discrimination and Disparities by Thomas Sowell. I would do it injustice. I'm trying to interpret it, his writing, and share it with you. But I'll share a couple sentences, just my own interpretation. When you read the book, he opens the mind on how people respond to disparities in society. You can respond emotionally to these disparities, or you can hear the facts backed up with historical data and come to a more logical reaction. The sad thing is people can take current data and manipulate it and come up with a desired outcome. Even data taken from our panorama survey can be manipulated to come up with a social initiative. For example, social emotional learning has this premise that kids learn better when they have a sense of belonging. It's hard to argue that. And if you challenge it, people say, well, you lack compassion or empathy. But I could come to you and say, well, kids who eat a healthy breakfast every day have a better chance of learning than kids who go to school hungry. Or I could say, data shows that kids who get 8 to 10 hours of sleep every night have a better chance of learning than kids who only get 4 to 5 hours of sleep. Therefore, our district must rewrite our whole bylaws, come up with an initiative that kids must get 8 to 10 hours of sleep every night, eat a healthy breakfast in order to improve our schools. I don't think it's the job of the schools to fix every social problem in society, but rather focus on teaching our kids the basics, reading, writing, arithmetic, support our teachers, keep our schools safe, and help prepare our kids for the real world. Change the subject, there's still a bullying problem in our district at all levels, and fights at the high school that are problematic. They're not creating a healthy learning environment for our kids and teachers. Please adjust these issues to a point where reasonable data shows improvement. Also want to address the bullying of teachers. We live in a small community here. People talk, information is being exchanged. From my understanding, there's been an undertone from administration that over the last few years, this agenda is coming. And if you're a teacher and if you're not on board, this might not be the district for you. And many great teachers have lost our district, or left our district, and we saw a great influx of new teachers. We condemn bullying at kids level. We should condemn it at the teacher level and administration level. I hear people talking about we need to teach better history, and there's only so many teaching hours in a year, and I'm sure teachers do the best they can. You know, my recommendation is if kids and parents want to push for an expansion of history and teach, that they start a book club to focus on teaching history after school. Lastly, I would encourage everyone to look outside of their ideological echo chamber and notice there's a world much bigger than yourself. Our community and schools were fine before this initiative came forth. You can be the heroes and bring us together, or you can continue to push this agenda. And I personally believe it's going to divide us by race, gender, ideologies, In the end, our kids' education will be less on learning or more on becoming social justice activists. Thank you.
It's Mr. Sullivan. The next slip that I have is from Angela Sullivan.
Hi, I'm seeing if I should wait for it. Okay. Okay. Thank you all again for having us, allowing public participation. I really didn't want to speak today because I've spoken so many times, but I've kind of felt like the board and administration don't always value my authentic voice. But because I care about my kids, the kids of this community, and the voices of those who feel like they don't belong in this district, here I am once again. First of all, I'd like to say that from my understanding, Ed Choice vouchers do not affect Gahanna schools. And they, in my opinion, they don't hurt kids, rather they help kids from low-income families who are assigned to school buildings with failing academics. These kids have a right, a fundamental right to an education, as they mentioned in the Zoom. And I don't think that a wealthy suburban district like Gahanna should be getting involved in a lawsuit affecting these low-income families that are assigned to failing schools. Education is the great equalizer, and if a government school cannot meet a basic standard, then it's only fair that those parents should be allowed to send their kids to a safe, competitive, and challenging school. I would also like to comment on the community conversation that was held on Monday. I greatly appreciate that the administration decided to give everyone an opportunity to engage in dialogue about the Equity and Access for All plan. I do hope that the district will be honest about the feedback that was given behind those closed doors. In my group and in many other groups, there were discussions both supporting and criticizing the plan. Criticisms that I heard include, one, the notion that this program was needed because of George Floyd, and the notion that Gahanna is a systemically racist town, which it is not. It's actually known for its diversity and unity. Number two, spending time, teacher training, and money on this program that would be better spent on improving the quality of education that all kids are experiencing here, regardless of their race. Number three, many people had a big problem with the political language, especially the word social justice and the phrase equitable outcome, and would like those terms and other terms such as sense of belonging to be more clearly defined, as they mean many different things to many different people. And number four, in discussing representation and staffing, people wanted to make sure that all staff were highly qualified for their positions and teachers, and also wanted to see better representation of male teachers and also those who have different thoughts and viewpoints. Gahanna is a very diverse district, racially, religiously, and politically, and we expect the district to respect this, even though much of the leadership come from the same worldview. For example, my definition of mental health comes from a biblical worldview, and the Bible says in Philippians 4 not to live in anxiety and fear, but to pray and be thankful to God, and He will give you inner peace. I have also learned from people like Thomas Sowell, Harvard professor Roland Fryer, and neuroscientists like Dr. Caroline Leaf and Dr. Bruce Lipton. There are literally hundreds of other viewpoints besides those being used in this district, and unless they are statistically proven to work in our district, we have to constantly reevaluate what programs need to be in place. Many of us are sending our kids here for an education and don't want a comprehensive mental health system or a social justice lens within the schools. Those are entirely separate issues that don't need to be forced on the entire student body. At Tuesday's finance meeting, it was announced that Gahanna will be facing a budget deficit by 2024 unless changes are made. In the private sector, businesses make difficult decisions and slow down on hiring new staff. I hope this is what Gahanna will do and make other changes rather than coming to the taxpayers with another levy. At the finance meeting, I suggested that the district not retain the eight social workers or people that perform that task after COVID funding runs out, and I was met with strong resistance. Our schools need to focus on having more experienced classroom teachers and aides and the tools for them to address behavior and promote self-regulation and self-discipline in the classroom. Also regarding the stakeholder group that will be interviewing and meeting with the superintendent candidates in the coming months, I would like to suggest that the community be involved in the selection of this group and that this group represents a variety of worldviews and thoughts. People like former mayors, former board members, clergy and youth pastors and business leaders would be great to include, and I would just ask that those people be considered so that we can all feel a sense of belonging in this community. Thank you.
Sullivan. The last slip that I have is from Siobhan Wolf-Schaefer.
Good evening, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak. I am the single mom of 2 black students who have both gone through the Gahanna schools. My youngest is a non-binary member of the LGBTQ community, and it's on her behalf and the behalf of all of the LGBTQ community students that I am here to speak this evening. When my daughter was in kindergarten, they had a Q and U wedding, and she didn't want a bouquet like the girls had. She wanted a tie. The next year, when she was in 1st grade, she came to me and said, "Mom, I've met the girl I'm going to marry." None of this was prompted by me or her teachers. She continued to dress as a non-binary student throughout elementary school, was questioned in the bathrooms with very little support. That kind of bullying continued in middle school, and she was outed by one of her peers to the entire grade. And she did receive a lot of support from the counselors at the school for that. She has been very supported at the high school with gender-neutral bathrooms, with inclusion in her theater program, with a lot of other students like herself. But when she was in middle school, she thought she was the only gay student in Gahanna, in Ohio. She didn't know any other people like herself. I am strongly urging the school board to make a resolution like the Columbus City Schools have done against HB 616 and the other restrictive bills that are coming through the Ohio legislature that will put a damper on the ability for all students to be taught and all students to be seen. I don't think it is the legislature's point to gag our teachers. As I said, my daughter was not prompted by her teachers. She knew who she was at a very young age, and making her invisible would only have harmed her worse. So I strongly support anything that the district can do to support the LGBT community, the black community, and allow the teachers of this district to do their job. Thank you.
Thank you. That was the last slip that I had, so we are going to move on from public participation. Are there any recommended additions, deletions, or changes to the agenda tonight? Okay. Is there a motion to approve the agenda as presented? Moved. Thank you, Mrs. Mooring. Is there a second? Thank you, Mrs. Horn. Any discussion? Mr. Gooding, can you call the roll?
Mrs. Mooring? Mrs. Pickle Antonio?
Yes.
Mrs. Coates?
Yes.
Mrs. Horn? Yes. Mr. Manley?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you. We are on the superintendent's report. Mr. Barrett?
Thank you. I want to first start out by talking about phase 2 of our master facilities plan. As Mrs. Mooring mentioned, the projects at Blacklick and High Point are, there's progress being made every day. Soon we'll have a shell of the building and be able to work on the inside, and it'll go even more quickly. The new dates for the classroom wings on both those buildings, for High Point it'll be November of 2022, and for Blacklick it'll be October of 2022. We just finished a design development for all 3 middle schools, west, east, and south. And so what that means is we started out with a schematic design. We moved into design development, which is a refinement of schematic design where all of the walls are put in place, all of the plugs, the fixtures, the plumbing, all of that, all the very detailed work the architects do to create a final design. And the next stage will be construction documents. And so what is happening with our design development is it was given over to our construction managers at risk, Russilli Construction, and they are pricing the work for all 3 middle schools. And we think we're going to come in pretty close to target. We hope so. There's a lot of challenges. There's labor challenges. There's supply chain challenges. But we've worked very hard to value engineer, and we'll have to do some further value engineering, we're sure. But those projects will begin soon, and we're very proud of where they're at right now. But we still have a lot of hard work to do, and we'll have some value engineering, which is just maybe a euphemism for reducing the scope of the project so that it's under budget or at budget. Today, we spent a few hours with our construction team and our architects on 50% of design development for the new high school. And so what that means is we went over where the architects are halfway through the phase of design development, and Russilli Construction had these big documents, and they took notes on the type of materials that might be used. And what they're creating already in process is a value engineering list so that we can begin to kind of think about ways to reduce the scope of the project so it will be within budget. And so there'll be lots of rigorous pricing that'll be happening. I'm really thankful to DLR Architects, Shore Architects, and Russilli Construction and Turner Construction, which is supporting us on these projects. It was very, very detailed work today, and I think they got a lot of good information which will lead to better pricing. So we're excited to finish design development for the high school, and again, we'll move from design development to construction documents. But first, there'll be lots of value engineering and making sure the scope fits within our budget. So a lot of exciting stuff, a lot of hard work ahead. I want to shift to talk about workforce development. I was able to go to Columbus State yesterday where lots of corporations and healthcare facilities were represented, and it was a phenomenal meeting, and the growth that's happening in our region is utterly amazing. So the head of HR for Ohio State Medical Systems was there, and he talked about the new building that they're building on 315. They're going to need 2,000 healthcare folks to fill that building. And often when we think about healthcare, we think about nurses and doctors, but most of those jobs will not be nursing and doctoring type jobs. There'll be lots of other things, kitchen help, aides, therapists, all kinds of different social workers. And so every day, Ohio State posts, the medical systems post 2,000 jobs that aren't filled. And, the need is going to be just staggering. A person was there from Elford Construction, a big construction firm in town. He said in the next 5 years, we're going to need 35,000 construction workers because lots of construction workers are at the age of retirement. And one of the things that he made that I've never really thought of before is that construction used to be thought of as a neck-down job, like a job that was very physical and lots of manual labor. And there is still some of that, but there's also lots of new tools that are very, very technologically developed, and construction is as much neck up as it is neck down. And he made that point, and I was on another call a couple weeks ago. The project at Intel is going to require 7,000 construction workers. So as we begin to build and put a shovel in the ground for our new high school, the challenge will be that labor force. The challenge will be, making sure that we have the best masons and electricians and plumbers to work on our project. but the price will be probably higher than it's ever been, and that's going to be a challenge moving forward. But what's great about Columbus and Central Ohio is that there is actually a compact and a workforce development group, and Kenny McDonald, who works on development in Columbus, helped put the deal for Intel together, constantly talking to us about what we're going to need to do in schools. A superintendent was there, and he said something that I think is very powerful. He said that none of these jobs will be filled unless we have adequate numbers of teachers, classroom aides, school employees. And so next week, at our next meeting, we're going to try to bring in our teaching professions program, and we have a really cool video. A graduate of our program is now a teacher at Middle School West, and we interview a teacher in that video who went through the program and is teaching for us now, and a student who's about to go to college. And we want to have a discussion about how important it is to kind of revive the career of teaching. Teachers during the pandemic were heroes, and now with the culture wars visiting our schools and our school systems across the country, all the vitriol and hate that we've seen, it's become a more and more challenging job, and we have to make sure that we keep it in focus and let young people know how transformational and inspiring a job it is. And so I'm looking forward to that next month. I want to also just talk about some amazing things that are happening. We have quite a few students from our DECA program at Nationals this weekend. You can go on our website and look at all the things I'm about to talk about. We have students that created a Black History project that's incredible from Middle School East. That's on our website. The teaching professions video link that I talked about is also on our website. We have a number of students going to the state Power of the Pen Championship. I also want to mention that Grin is adding, they're doing another summer lunch program for us this summer for our students and families. They're going to have sites at Royal Manor, Goshen Lane, and Lincoln Elementary. And there is a survey on our website and on Facebook that you can answer to help them gauge how many people might, be taking advantage of this program. And there are federal programs, lunch programs, that we could use to feed kids during the summer, but our churches take it on, and not only do they take it on, they sit and they eat with our kids and families and get to know them. And so it's just a powerful connection. It's not just lunch, there's fellowship and there's kinship that's involved as well. As Mrs. Coates mentioned, a number of us were at Otterbein University this week and saw the Global Scholars program. There was some 800 students there, and we had about 10 or so from Gehanna, and it was really exciting, and it's going to be exciting next week when we have them at our student learning and an achievement meeting. Great presentation. I was going to talk about the Urban Arts Fair. It's always a great community event. That's May 7th. And then May 18th is Spread the Word to End the Word Day, and that's always a great event. I have a couple more things, but I'm going to turn it over to our Assistant Superintendent, Jill Elliott, to talk about our Equity and Access Plan, high school athletics during the construction process, and our calendar committee.
Thank you, Mr. Barrett. So I'm going to start with the calendar creation portion. We had a survey go out to ask the community to weigh in on priorities we should be considering when we're building the new school calendar. We have over 1,500 responses so far. It's about 100 more than we had last time, and there's still time to complete it. It closes Monday at midnight. We are forming a committee that's going to be getting together over the next few weeks to take a look at the priorities that have been identified, to draft some calendar options, which there typically aren't many options. It's moving some days here and there. But we do intend to put calendar options out to the community like we have in the past, for the community to vote and help us select the structure for our school calendars in the future. We do already have the school calendar for 22-23 out and on our website. We are looking at creating the next 3 years of school calendars. Typically, we will select a structure and then we just duplicate it for the next few years. So more to come on the school calendar. I did want to give a heads up to the board. I did talk with Burl about this, but next month when we intend to recommend the next school years of calendars, we also will have an update to the 22-23 school year calendar. When we duplicated the structure a few years back, we didn't recognize that New Year's Day is actually observed on January 2nd, and we have that scheduled as a professional development day. So we just need to bump the second semester back one day. So you'll see that coming next month. I have already had conversations with Joan Miller about it, and so you'll see that next month. Moving into just an update about our equity and access community conversation that we had on Monday. We thought it was a wonderful event. We had 176 community stakeholders sign up to attend, and just over 90 participated. So we were really pleased to have so many students, staff, parents, community members come together to give us their feedback. We also had a student group, and so that was excellent to get feedback from our students. And we had 2 high school students that offered childcare, so we had about 12 kiddos ages 10 and below that came in and had snacks and did some activities, so that was good as well. The small group format was fantastic. We heard lots of positive feedback about people feeling like they were able to hear or share their voice or share their ideas and have their voices be heard. As Steve and I visited rooms, we definitely saw respectful dialogue happening and lots of productive conversations, so we're just really grateful to everyone that participated there. We sent an email out today to those that were interested in serving on our parent advisory group to just share the purpose and kind of the meeting cadence so that they could kind of reflect on if that was something that they would be able to commit to. And they are getting back to us about their interest, and so we will be selecting 12 to 15 community members working together with our facilitators from the community conversation as well. And we're really looking to have members that represent all of our buildings across the district, the full grade range of students, as well as our diverse population across the district. So we will communicate to everyone who's serving on that, so that community members and those that were not able to be a part of the committee know who to reach out to provide feedback to and get information from. Let's see here. Moving on to an update about the high school and athletics. We know there's a lot of angst just around what's it going to look like, how we're going to make the year special for our students when we know we won't have the stadium most of the year next year. So Jessica and Kat have been meeting with student athletes, gathering feedback from them, as well as feedback from coaches and the band directors, to just really process ideas related to making next year special. And so there's been pretty much a consensus that the fall sports would like to have senior nights early in their season in the stadium. And so that's something that's being planned. There are already some draft dates that they're putting together, and those will be communicated appropriately with families. The band had some discussion about the fact that so early in the season it's so hot out and they're not typically in full uniform. And so, they want to be recognized in the fall, but we've been talking about some options for how we might have later senior picture sessions and things like that, where they can be in their full uniform and walk, potentially across the field at a game later in the season. One thing that's pretty exciting, and the students were really pumped about it, is Jessica and Kat have been just processing the idea of a big community homecoming event after the last home game that would be played in the stadium on August 26th. So they're looking at August 27th, a Saturday, where we would come together. The students said they want it to be big entertainment and activities. And so it'll be an opportunity also for us to recognize some of our spring sport athletes. And so that's something that was processed as well. Kat's going to be giving an update on the projects at next month's booster meeting as well, so I know that's something that's coming up. As far as the schedule goes for football, we do have the first 2 football games set to happen in the stadium. We've shared that. We have that September 16th game will be played at Otterbein. That is we'll have an adjustment to our start time there. We'll have to back it up a little bit. We're still working out those final details. Our September 30th home game will be at Whitehall, and then our October 14th home game will be at Fortress Obetz. And so working on some of those written agreements and such at this time. Also, plans in the works related to summer activities and band camp and, where is that going to be hosted? Soccer has 10 days in July, so they're not really affected. They get their contact time in before we lose the access to the stadium. Tennis essentially starts August 1, so they do run like some preseason captain's practices and things like that. But we are, crossing our fingers that the Blacklick Athletic Complex will be ready for our soccer and tennis teams out there. We are giving priority to the field area because we are still able to continue with the tennis season in the fall on our existing courts. So it'll just be time will tell how that will play out. But we're processing to make sure everybody can still have their preseason activities because we will be losing access to the land behind the stadium, like the Lincoln Elementary and the extra green space back there on August 1. So being really mindful of what needs to be happening for our student athletes and band students and such. I think that is all. Oh, no, one more thing, sorry. We just, to follow up on Steve's comment about design development, we're having follow-up discussions right now on some very targeted areas in the building, performing arts, visual arts, food service, our science teachers, the specific needs that they have. So we will be, continuing those conversations. Yesterday we had a full day bold session with our cohort from the high school that went really well, and we started researching different learning models and had some discussions about our guiding purpose and goals for that particular group and supporting us in transitioning into the new building. And we plan to pull that group together a couple times in May again to then continue the research and plan some multidisciplinary collaborative units and lessons that will be used next fall as we're continuing the study. Lastly, today we actually had, sorry, so much to share. Today we actually had a meeting with Lynn Fogel. We had architects in town and joining us virtually where we were able to go through all of the accessibility plans for the new site and the high school building. We were able to show her the plans and get her feedback. I feel confident saying that she was very pleasantly surprised and happy with what she saw. We looked at the stadium, the competition gym, the auditorium access, as well as just some general travel distances around the site, and got some really positive feedback from her. So I just commend DLR for being so proactive and so knowledgeable in that area, and we really have a fantastic building coming. That is all.
Joe, just a couple more things. So tomorrow, Friday, we have the state and choir band, the choir and band competition. So at 5:30, the blue band will be in the high school auditorium. 6:30, the gold band. 8:40, women's ensemble at Middle School West auditorium, and 9:40, the a cappella choir at Middle School West. And then Saturday, the 23rd, will be freshman band, freshman girls and boys choir following one another. Also, summer school registration is open. Most of the classes are free. New credit classes, enrichment classes you have to pay, but we're excited to have another year of Journey to Learning. And I wanted to just say so Sue and I on April 9th went to New Life Church, and we were a part of the discussion. The Moms for Liberty hosted speakers. I think 2 of them were from New York and 1 was from Chicago. And we learned a lot. We listened. We were there from 9 till about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And I appreciated being able to go there and learn some things I didn't know. I think I guess what I want to say about that is the point I made is no matter what we believe about social issues or where we are as a society, we have to come together for our kids in education. We have to find a way to find common ground and agreement. And one of the things that they kind of made me think a lot about were the algorithms that Facebook and Google use to push us toward vitriol and hate. And so I wrote about it in the Dispatch. It was in, I think, last week. And I think it's just really, really important to say that the way we get our news and the echo chambers we're in make us all think certain ways. And the reason I went to the Moms for Liberty is I wanted to get out of whatever echo chamber I find myself in and find out what other people who I don't get to experience often think. And I thought that was invaluable. And what I loved about our Equity and Access Night Monday is the fact that people could come together in our community with differing views and talk in a civil way. We have great facilitators leading the discussion. It was a lot of listening, and we'll put the data together and we'll formulate a plan that fits who we are. And we're excited to do that. And, I talked to a lot of my friends and I said, yeah, we're having this night. And they said, are you crazy? Why are you doing this? You're going to have, riotous behavior. You're going to have people, saying things and getting out of control, because that's what we've seen across the country. Look at video of Bucks County, Pennsylvania, near Philadelphia. Right? We had none of that. We had people disagreeing, but doing so in a civil, rational, human way. And that says a lot about our community, and we're poised to do this work together as one. That's all I have. Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
No, it's
Just
okay.
one last thing. I wanted to share. We have a lot of surveys out right now, but another one's going out tomorrow. For those of our community members that weren't able to join us Monday at the community conversation, we do have a survey going out for everyone, including those that joined us, to be able to provide feedback related to our 5 focus areas. So that will be going out tomorrow as well.
That going to students also?
Yes.
That's great. I mean, I asked that because I know that the student group had some pretty interesting discussion in that room too, and it would be nice to get their survey responses as well. I just want to say thank you. There's so much work that is going on in this district always, but particularly right now. I have no idea how all of it continues to go on, and you're sitting with us tonight. But thank you for all of the work. I guess I want to give a special thank you to you, Jill, because I asked you a very specific question to update about the football schedule, and thank you for getting that together really quickly. I know there were some anxious people out there wondering where kids were going to be playing, so thank you for that. Any questions from board members about anything from the superintendent
one
report?
real quick on the summer learning program. How does that relate to like the Grin locations? So is summer learning at a different location, right? Is that Chapel Field, I understand, right?
Yeah, so they won't, they're in close proximity. Some summers we've had actually at both the Grin Lunch and Summer Journey to Learning in the same place. This year we don't, but we hope people can make their way over to either Royal Manor or Goshen Lane or Lincoln Elementary to be a part of it. We don't thank Grin enough for all they do. It's incredible, and it's not just a lunch. It's kinship. It's a wonderful thing.
Tia oversees our summer programming and serves on the board with Grin. Anything to add, Tia? Okay.
Just want to say one thing. So I noticed that the pace here is picking up as the end of school year approaches, And we started out at a fast pace, and I noticed that about everyone with the school district. And I can't tell you how much respect and appreciation I have for every single person on this school and staff and board and employees. And the students appreciate it as well, and they show it. And I just can't express it. And the pace is picking up, and we are just in awe of how much you guys juggle and how much you put on and how hard you work. And the interconnectedness that Varun was talking about among the staff. I'm just so privileged to work with everyone here and be getting to know you, and I just can't express it enough. And I've said it before, and you're going to hear it again, but it's really, I can't believe how much you do. So morning, noon, and night, 24/7. Thank you. Thank you.
We are on the treasurer's report. Mr. Gooding?
Okay, thank you. I'm trying to read the room, and I think there's a lot of students who want to get their form signed. So I promise you I will not give the 2.5-hour presentation on the finances. I may not make it to my car, you know. I'll reference it. If you're really interested in being CFOs, let me know. We can talk. No, but I mean, Daphne did a really nice job talking about the finance committee presentation. It was a very lengthy, but it was a very rich discussion that we had on getting the update on the Phase 2 project, on the monthly financial piece. We talked through that. The great news is that we're right on track. We've got a little bit of timing issues when the property tax allocation was coming in, but we now have it, so everything's right where it needed to be. Revenues were spot on, less than a 1% variance, which is fantastic. Expenses were trending under 3%, so revenues are up, expenses are down, right where we wanted to be for the year. What you'll see in the agenda items later, you'll see the March financial report still is an informational meeting. I think we're 7 weeks on the job, so I'm getting close to almost moving from number of weeks I've been here to actually talking about months. So that's a really exciting thing. So there's still a lot of catch up things that we're trying to get caught up on. So you will see there are 3 items on here for action for approval for reports that have been presented as information that are now moving to action. So October, November, December financial reports will be officially recommended here. We're going to get the next 3, the January, February, March. We'll have those at next month's meeting to get approved, and then we'll be caught up and right back on track. So that's a great thing. The other piece of it on the 5-year forecast, and I did want to clarify on a comment that was made this evening, just so that everybody that hears the correct information. When we talked, we did spend a lot of time talking about the forecast. So it can be used in different terms, in different manners. So I want to reference that in FY24, we will be spending more money than we have coming in. It's deficit spending. By no means does that mean that we are out of money at all. So yes, we will start spending more of our annual revenue, more than what our annual expenses are, but we have money in the bank. So that being said, in 24, we're projected to end with $29.6 million in the bank. So we're okay. Nothing to, you don't want to spend more, so that's the first trigger for us to look at that. But financially, we're very, very healthy. In this 5-year forecast that we projected, none of those years end with a negative cash balance. So I don't want anybody to cause alarm that there's not a levy on the horizon right now. We're not talking about that, but there are things that we see in the future, and that's why we do a 5-year forecast, so we can see what those trends are, identify when those red flags pop up, and then we have conversations. It's a management tool for us, and we're going to talk about that. How do we avoid those deficit spending? How do we push those things out? Because we don't want to be in that position. So I just want to make sure that I pointed that out this evening. The other pieces on the agenda this evening that you will see, the appropriation increases there. We have 4 funds that are being requested for increases. The first one is Fund 018. This is $1,950 for field trips for Middle School East. Fund 019 is a local grant, $250 for Chapel Field for American Electric Power Lego robotics grant that they received. And Fund 200 is our student activity grant, or student activity fund. It's $26,100, and there's a breakdown here. $2,500 of it is for the high school for the Columbus Zoo and Aquarium Teen Echo Summit grant that they received. $5,600 for the high school's TV studio club, and $18,000 for the high school DECA Spread the Word program. And finally, Fund 300 is also a student activity account, and I will get into the accounting weeds here. They're both student activity funds. 200 funds are truly student-managed programs, just what we heard the kids talk about. That's a Fund 200 program because they are managed by the students. 300 funds are still student activity programs, but they're managed by the adults. So that's where the difference between a 200 versus a 300 fund is. And that one is for high school. It's a Operation Paperclip. It's for the government class that's doing some work there, and that's $12,000. You will also see later we are approving as a new activity account the Operation Paperclip program as well. So those two are obviously tied together. We also have donations, 3 donations on here. We appreciate the continued community support for our schools, and these donations are greatly appreciated. We also have a fund-to-fund transfer. This is the general fund's obligation for the stadium bleacher projects. We're moving the funds from the general fund into the debt service fund to make those payments. So that's what we're doing on number 5. And number 6 is another student activity account that we're creating for the class of 2023 class, another student activity account. So that's all I have before you this evening.
Elaborate a little bit. With school district financing, the deficit that he spoke about is actually a normal cycle of a school district because we are funded by taxpayers and we have to get approval by the taxpayers for the funding for the next period. And so if you just ask the taxpayers for the next year, you would be doing a levy every year. And that would not be smart, number one, because they're costly, and a way to conduct business. So when we go out to provide funding for the district, we look at a 5 to 6 year period with which to fund that levy. So that means in the early years, our expenses aren't going to be what they are because of inflation in the later years. So for the first 3 years, we operated well under what we were bringing in, which created that savings account in essence, that once the inflation affects the expenses, causes deficit spending. So it's not an unknown going into the cycle, it's a known. And it's really difficult, I think, for most people because normal businesses and your home wouldn't do that. But I just feel like that it gets misconstrued, and I know some of our public speakers didn't understand it after being at the meeting on Tuesday. So I'm glad we were able to correct that.
Yep. And I think we've got what I will call some unique ideas in how we can bring in some education around school funding in general to our future finance meetings, which I'm really excited about as well. So that'll be good.
Thank you for that clarification, Mr. Gooding. And thank you also to you and to your staff for all of the hard work in catching up on the monthly financial reports. I know this is, I don't know how many weeks we're at that you've been in Gahanna now, but thank you for all of that work to get us
Thank you.
caught up.
I'll let them know too.
Thank you.
I am too. You're welcome.
There are 7 items for action under financial business. Unless there is an objection to taking those items together, is there a motion to approve items number 1 through 7 under letter C? Thank you, Mrs. Mooring. Is there a second? I'll second. Thank you, Mrs. Horn. Any additional discussion about any of these items? Okay, Mr. Gooding.
Just one thing. I just want to acknowledge and appreciate the White family, the Andersons, and DJEA for their donations.
Manley, any additional discussion? Okay, Mr. Gooding, can you call the roll?
Mr. Manley? Mrs. Mooring? Yes. Mrs. Pickle Antonio?
Yes.
Mrs. Coates?
Yes.
Mrs. Horn? Yes. Motion carried.
Thank you. We are on page 5. If any of you are still following along, under letter D, there are 4 items for action. Unless there is an objection to taking those items together, is there a motion to approve items number 1 through 4 under letter D? Thank you, Mrs. Coates. Is there a second? Thanks, Mr. Manley. Any discussion?
Is the Heinemann book purchase number 3, is that the math curriculum? No.
No, that's literacy and additional teacher sets and such for new sections, as well as text to support the literacy curriculum.
Anything else? Mr. Gooding, can you call the roll?
Mrs. Horn? Yes. Mr. Manley?
Yes.
Mrs. Mooring?
Yes.
Mrs. Pickle Antonio?
Yes.
Mrs. Coates?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Under letter E, Human Resources, there are 26 items for action. Unless there is an objection to taking those items together, is there a motion to approve items number 1 through 26 under letter E?
Motion.
Thanks, Mr. Manley. Is there a second? Thank you, Mrs. Coates. Any discussion?
To see Steve's name on here. And all of the retirees, thank you for their work over the many years, but there's some great names, great teachers.
Yeah, and were you going to say something,
Yeah,
Mr. Barrett? Go
I
ahead.
just wanted to point out that I met with Garrett Sendelbach today. He is going to be our interim middle school athletic director. I want to thank Jen Henley. She's moving on to a position with Special Olympics, and she's done a great job for us, and really happy for her. And so Garrett has spent a week or so with her to get acclimated to what the spring sports calendar is, and we're talking about some different things we might add for next year, and so we're excited to work with Garrett. So thanks, Jen Henley.
Great. There are these 26 items represent a whole lot of hard work from our HR director, Mrs. Reed, and all of her staff. So please let your staff know how grateful we are for all of the hard work. And I know that it's not just our HR department, but all of our administrators who are responsible for conducting the interviews, interviewing all of these candidates, processing all of the paperwork, including staff in central office. So thank you to everybody who was behind these 26 items. We are excited to welcome new staff to our Gahanna Jefferson family. That's always the fun part of the end of the year, is when we start to see a lot of the new hires come on here. So thank you for all of the work that went into all of these items.
And on that, on the new staff, is that all the replacement staff versus new positions?
No discussion? Okay, Mr. Gooding, can you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Coates?
Yes.
Mrs. Horn? Mr. Manley? Mrs. Mooring?
Yes.
Mrs. Pickle Antonio? Motion carried.
Thank you. I think we're on letter F, page 16. There are 16 items for action under general business. Unless there is an objection to taking those items together, is there a motion to approve items number 1 through 16 under letter F? Thanks, Mrs. Mooring. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Coates. Any discussion about these items?
I think it's exciting to see the permanent improvement projects and where the effort's going to be this summer, and these schools are getting a makeover over the last 4 years, so very good.
Any additional discussion? Okay, Mr. Gooding, can you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Pickle Antonio?
Yes.
Mrs. Coates?
Yes.
Mrs. Horn? Mr. Manley? Mrs. Mooring?
Yes.
Motion carried.
We are on page 19, board reports and discussions. I will start with a legislative update. So let's see, start with State Board of Education. State Board of Education has set I can never remember what we've talked about during legislative update and what we haven't talked about. So the State Board of Education is currently in the process of interviewing candidates to select the next state superintendent. They had narrowed down to a list of 7 candidates, I think, that they interviewed, and they have set a special meeting for April 28th to vote to hire the next state superintendent. The next just brief update that I have is about redistricting. I think I talked about it a little bit last month, but just an update to what the situation is. Divided Ohio Supreme Court declared a 4th set of legislative maps to be unconstitutional and set a date of May 6th for new maps. And then yesterday, a divided federal court said that if there is no constitutional map produced by May 28th, then the federal court will impose the 3rd set of maps that the Ohio Supreme Court had previously found to be unconstitutional. So by May 28th, if there is no constitutional map agreed to on May 28th, the federal court will impose that 3rd set of maps. What that means for us is that if we get to May 28th, here in Gahanna, our state representative, we would stay essentially in the same House district and Senate district that we're currently in. Some of the lines change, but we would retain those same representatives for now, although both of them are up for re-election this year. House Bill 126 was a bill that we had hoped for a different outcome on, but the governor signed that piece of legislation today. That is a piece of legislation that I have been talking about for a long time because it has been introduced and reintroduced over the years in the General Assembly. That I'm not going to reiterate what that legislation does, but it will take effect with the 2022 tax year, and it very much limits school districts' ability to file complaints with the Board of Revisions when they believe that commercial properties are undervalued, which means that essentially residential property owners will bear the burden of any of those undervalued commercial properties. Then just really briefly, there's a couple bills that have recently been signed by the governor that impact public education. House Bill 597 provides capital reappropriations, including about $442.8 million for local school construction through the Ohio Facility Construction Commission that received prior conditional approval. Senate Bill 9 requires the Ohio Department of Education and other state agencies to reduce regulatory restrictions by 30% for 2025. I don't think there's any way to predict how ODE will reduce those regulatory restrictions or to know exactly how that will impact us, but they are required to do that. And then Senate Bill 11 makes changes to paid leave for Juneteenth by requiring school districts to grant regular non-teaching school employees who are employed on an 11 to 12 month basis paid leave. It removes the requirement that school districts grant paid leave to regular non-teaching school employees who are employed on a 9 to 10 month basis. And then finally, I wanted to talk about a new piece of legislation that was introduced. I don't have that's weird. I didn't write down the date that it was introduced, but I think it was introduced last week. House Bill 616 was introduced by Representatives Mike Loychuk and Gene Schmidt. It is a bill that would prohibit a Board of Education from teaching certain divisive, what they characterize as, or what they call divisive or inherently racist concepts in public schools. It would prohibit a Board of Education from training or administering professional development to employees that they say promotes or endorses divisive or inherently racist concepts. It would prohibit K-3 students from being provided instruction on sexual orientation and gender identity. It would prohibit students in grades 4 through 12 from being provided any instruction on sexual orientation or gender identity in any manner that is not age appropriate or developmentally appropriate in accordance with state standards. It would allow complaints to be filed with the State Board of Education and withhold funding for noncompliance with the bill's provisions. There are not any definitions contained within that bill, and so far, the state representatives who introduced that legislation have been unwilling to participate in any interviews to explain why the bill was introduced, what their concerns are. So this is the third piece of legislation that has been introduced in the last, I would say, let's see, in the last 6 months, 8 months, related to, I guess, regulating curriculum. We have previously talked about House Bills 322 and House Bill 327. And I guess I am starting to have some concern about the number of these bills that are being introduced in our legislature that so far have not really identified what it is that the legislation is being introduced to regulate. There have been, so the three bills, House Bill 322 was referred to the House State and Local Government Committee. And by the way, it wasn't referred to the House Education Committee. It was referred to the House State and Local Government Committee. House Bill 327 also was not introduced to the House Education Committee, but to the House State and Local Government Committee. And then this new bill, 616, has not yet been referred to committee. But all three of these bills they're pretty unusual in Ohio. We haven't had legislation like this introduced before. Typically, the way that our curriculum gets set and discussed is that we have a state board of education, we have a state superintendent. That State Board of Education and state superintendents work with stakeholders to set what the goals are for curriculum, kind of set what the foundational core principles are that our public schools should be developing curriculum in accordance with. And then our individual local school districts develop that curriculum that matches their community's needs so that they can meet those state standards. This legislation is unusual because it completely curtails that normal process of determining what is and what is not appropriate in a school district. From my perspective, the fact that the third piece of legislation like this has been introduced, I guess I feel like it's time for us as a school board to speak up and say that we don't think that this legislation is appropriate, and the way that I would propose that we do that is by passing a resolution that lays out our thoughts about this legislation, and then that resolution would be sent to Speaker of the House, the Senate President, and then the members of the committee where this legislation is pending. I drafted a resolution that I shared with each of you, I think just this morning, and what I would propose is that we take a look at that resolution, have some dialogue about, I guess, number one, whether or not all of us or a majority of us feel that we should say something. And if we do feel like we do want to say something, this is just a draft. It's just a starting point. So I guess what I would propose is that we talk about what's in the draft, what should be added to it, what can be taken away from it. But I'm not proposing that we vote on this tonight, but I'm just proposing that we discuss it. And like I said, it just came to you this morning, so we don't have to discuss it tonight. But I don't know how anyone else feels.
I appreciate your overview and your explanation, Merle. And I think all of us are watching the news and what's happening in surrounding states and the effects of similar bills. And so I appreciate you bringing it up and totally agree that we need to talk about it. And we want to welcome input from our community, our families, and let's keep talking and work it out together.
I agree. I feel we need to say something and we need to talk about it. I read the bill. I think it's extremely vague. There are words that were used in it could have multiple definitions and be interpreted in many different ways. And I don't feel it supports public education or our teachers. I feel it sets them up for failure, and I can't support something that does that. So I feel that we should talk about it and see where everyone else is feeling, and if it's something we want to move forward in terms of a resolution.
I also agree that we can't sit by and let this, I mean, the reality is that none of the things that they're alluding to and have no factual basis for it being in curriculum, especially our curriculum. So it's not built on a foundation of reality. And the thing that I did not spend a lot of time reviewing the resolution today, but to me, we need to say, representatives and senators, this isn't your job. You need to refer this to the Ohio Department of Education for them to vet it. They're the specialists in education and manage and control the K-12 education parameters. It should not be coming from our House and Senate. I don't know if that's a logical thing to be included, but that's my kind of thought process.
The only question is, where are we going to discuss it, like now, or are we in a committee?
So we could refer it to a committee for discussion. We could discuss it now. I don't know which committee it would appropriately go to for policy and governance, which is next. Yeah, I don't know how big the policies Tuesday, and then student learning and achievement is Thursday, right? We have a special board meeting on Tuesday after the policy committee meeting. Do we just have global scholars on the agenda for? Not just, but is that that's the only item on the agenda for, so maybe Thursday is the appropriate time to have that conversation, and then at least that gives you an opportunity to read the draft resolution that I sent you, and we can have some conversation about the wording of it. And I guess I should have said, I didn't say, after I drafted it, I did send it over to Board Attorney Nicole, so she has already had a chance to look at the language and look at the structure of the resolution. But if that's okay with everyone, go ahead.
Beryl, I feel like the policy, because we're on the committee, we got a sneak peek at the agenda. The policies that we're reviewing are pretty cut and dry policies, so I think that'll move pretty smoothly. I almost think we need to have the opportunity to have our initial discussion on Tuesday, add concepts to the draft resolution, and then have a second reading basically on Thursday where we have a second opportunity to see what was crafted after the Tuesday conversation.
We can do that.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, what I am also thinking through is that if we do decide that we want to take action and vote to approve the resolution, we have to do that in a meeting. We have a special meeting Tuesday. We do not have a special meeting right now set for Thursday. I don't know when our next meeting after Thursday is.
It's the 7th.
The 30th,
Oh,
that's
the
right.
30th. Oh, yeah. And the 7th.
Yeah. Okay. So let's do that. Let's talk about it if that's okay on Tuesday. And then if we decide on Tuesday that we want to talk about it again on Thursday, then we'll do that. Does that work? Okay. And what I will do, because I am guessing that we may get requests to see the draft draft resolution, is that I will make sure that you have a copy of it in case those requests come, or in case you want to. I mean, we can print it and have it available on Tuesday.
I commend the board for your willingness to discuss this. And on Cleveland.com, there's an article. There's something like 125 laws right now, just in Ohio, on the docket concerning education. It's being politicized to the nth degree. And one of the things, one of the speakers, and Sue was there on Saturday at the Moms for Liberty meeting, one of the things he said was that if you're a conservative and you believe in your right to speak against equity, what they call critical race theory, what you should do is announce who you are, claim your identity, and not be dissuaded from that. And I made the point to several people in the meeting that as that meeting was happening and as he was speaking, we had students from Gahanna-Lincoln High School at the State House protesting 616, doing the same thing, claiming who they are, what they believe, their very existence. So to me, what this speaker was saying people should do, our kids were doing. And yet, he didn't agree, it seemed, with their right to do that and be who they are in our schools. And the irony, to me, is palpable. Thanks.
I guess one thing that I did not say that I should have said is that the reason, I guess there are two reasons that I think that we need to speak. The fact that this is like I said, the third piece of legislation like this that hasn't identified yet what it is specifically that somebody thinks is going on in our buildings that they have concern about. But the effect of this kind of legislation is that it has a tremendous chilling effect on dialogue, and it injects a lot of fear and instability into our system of public education, and our system of public education is already under tremendous strain. It also, these pieces of legislation jeopardize and undermine the things that we as a board have said that we want to make sure that we do, which is to ensure that every single one of our students feels a sense of belonging. And so that is why I think that we need to speak. Okay. We're going to move on to any update. Now is your turn to let us know, Mr. Manley. Do you have any update from Eastland Fairfield?
No, I will pass.
Thank you. And that's because you haven't received an update from our Eastland Fairfield board member, right?
Correct.
Thanks. Any update from Gahanna Parks and Rec?
No update this month.
Okay, thanks. How about as our local government liaison?
Steve and the team for Phase 2 presented at a Planning Commission workshop at the end of April. And so it was a good opportunity for the city leaders to see the project. And we did get some great feedback. And the conversations both during that Planning Committee workshop and after it helped to drive some changes that were already incorporated. And the package was delivered to the city April 13th, and the planning department and engineers have been very great to work with the city of Gahanna. So that's what I'll add.
So it was the end of March, so March 30th, and it does. We were going to submit the final submission of the plan to the zoning and planning on April 8th, but because of the feedback we got, we delayed it till April 13th, and we had a fuller submission that incorporated what the Planning and Zoning Commission, the input they gave us, and they gave us great input, and I think it's going to go very well, and I appreciate the city. I'll just say that we've said it a number of times, but bi-weekly we meet with the city and we go over our plans, we go over permitting and all the things we need to do to align with their schedule, and we try to build in lots of time. They're short-staffed, and so that they can either send it out for consultants to look at it or look at it themselves, and they have been just great partners, so I'm very grateful to the city, Mayor Jadwin and her team for helping us with that.
You. Any report from Gahanna Jefferson Education Foundation, Mrs. Coates?
Yeah, so DJEA received 49 grant applications this spring, which is down slightly from past years. They worked closely with the curriculum department to ensure that the requests are in line with the curriculum plans. They approved $56,783.64 for 33 grants of excellence. Several of the other grants fell within school district expenditures. They're currently in the process of placing orders for materials to be delivered before the end of the school year, and they're also in the process of reviewing and interviewing scholarship applicants. Wearing their community relations hat, they held a successful What's Next job fair last week at Clark Hall for graduating seniors who are looking to go directly into the workforce or to earn training certificates. So appreciative of their work and their commitment to our students and our teachers.
Final total from the gala?
It wasn't the gala. It was the they approved $56,783.64 for 33 grants of excellence.
Did they tell you what the final total was? Because I think
did
that
not.
last month it was still an estimate. I just hadn't heard the final total.
They did not.
Yeah,
share
the
that.
estimate was around 120, but they think it was higher.
Anything from Insurance Committee, Mrs. Horn?
We are actually meeting May 2nd, and that will be utilized into the 5-year forecast. So we are meeting at 4:30 on the 2nd.
Thanks. Is there a motion to go into executive session pursuant? Oh, you know what? I didn't even ask. Were there any other items from other board members? Thank you, Mrs. Coates.
There was a comment made earlier that they hoped the district would be honest in feedback provided on the equity and inclusion community conversation. I want to assure everyone that it is a given our district will be honest. Everyone in administration has the deepest integrity and I am appreciative of their integrity. So I just want to assure everyone, yes, it will be honest.
I also had a note here. During public participation, there were some inaccuracies cited, I think. And how can we go about emailing them to advise them of the inaccuracies that they quoted tonight? Or I just feel like not to address it means that they may have been right. And so, especially with regard to the Ed Choice voucher piece.
But we can work together to address what was inaccurate.
The hardest part for me as a new board member is I really appreciate public comment, and I think it's important, and I think it's important that we listen. But when there is an inaccuracy, I also want to make sure they're informed, because I'm sure they don't mean to share the inaccuracy. So I'm glad that you brought it up, Daphne.
Any other items from anyone else? It's okay. Okay. Is there a motion then to go into executive session pursuant to revised code 121.22 G1 and G5? So G1 is related to, I know I always read through it. I don't think I'm going to read through it, but G1 is related to discussion of issues related to a public employees, and G2 are matters that are required to be kept confidential by federal rules or state statutes. Thanks, Mr. Manley. Is there a second? Thank you, Mrs. Horn. Any discussion? Just for anyone watching and for all of you who are students who are really anxious to get out of here, when we go, I will sign your form as soon as we take the roll call to go into executive session. When we go into executive session, the board and invited staff will be joining us in a different room. We will be coming back into this room and into public session after executive session, but the only board action that we'll be taking at that time is to adjourn the meeting. So as soon as we do the roll call vote, you can come up and I'll sign forms so you can get out of here. Anyone else is more than welcome to stay while we're in executive session, but the only thing that we'll be doing is coming back to adjourn. Mr. Gooding, can you call the roll?
Mrs. Mooring? Yes. Mrs. Pickle Antonio?
Yes.
Mrs. Coates?
Yes.
Mrs. Horn? Yes. Mr. Manley? Motion carried.
So we'll take a short recess and then we will meet in executive session. It is 12:17 p.m. and we are out of executive session. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Manley. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mrs. Coates. Mr. Gooding, can you call the roll, please? I'm assuming there's not any discussion. I shouldn't assume, but
Mr. Manley? Yes. Mrs. Mooring?
Yes.
Mrs. Pickle Antonio?
yes.
Mrs. Coates?
Yes.
Mrs. Horn?
Yes.
Motion carried.
12:17 p.m. and we are adjourned.
AM.
Whoop.
Yeah.
AM.